heartwarming mom who adopted 118 children and touched the hearts of millions. How did she end up in prison? Sentenced to 20 years? In 2006, Lijuan was honored as one of the top 10 people who moved Hebei province, China, for rescuing and caring for numerous orphans. Yet, just 13 years later, she found herself facing a 20-year prison sentence. What led to such a shocking turn of events? The bizarre story begins with Lijuan herself. Her grandfather was a kind-hearted doctor who, upon encountering impoverished patients, never charged a dime and would often offer them food and money. Even Lijuan's 2 aunts were children her grandfather adopted during his charitable practices. Growing up under his influence, Lijuan seemed to have helping others ingrained in her DNA from an early age. However, the reason she started adopting children stemmed from a deeply traumatic experience that haunted her for life. In her youth, Lijuan fell in love with a man who had recently been released from prison, ignoring her family's objections. They married quickly and had children. Lijuan was quite capable. After their marriage, she invested her savings into a clothing and yarn business, building a fortune of several $100,000. But as their lives became more comfortable, her husband's true nature began to surface. He developed a drug addiction. Initially, Lijuan tried to save him with her love, just as she had when they first met. However, repeated attempts to intervene only worsened his behavior. In the end, the pain outweighed the hope, and she chose to divorce him, leaving behind their wealth and children in hopes of starting anew. But just 6 months later, she received devastating news. Her drug-addicted husband had squandered their fortune and sold their son to traffickers for $1,000 to feed his addiction. That night, Lijuan frantically searched for her child and finally found him on a bus ready to depart. As she held her son in her arms, her mind raced with horrifying thoughts. What if she had arrived just a minute later? Would he have been taken deep into the mountains, never to see the light of day again? Would he have been dismembered and forced to beg on the streets? Lijuan vowed to protect her children at all costs, ensuring they would never suffer even the slightest harm. Determined to provide a better life for her children, she borrowed money and partnered with others to lease a local iron mine. With her business acumen, she managed the mine successfully. It was here that she adopted her first girl, whose father died in a mining accident and whose mother abandoned her to remarry. The little girl spent her days begging at the mine and her nights sleeping in a cave, vulnerable and alone. One day, while returning home, Lijuan spotted the filthy little girl scavenging in the mine. Some workers were teasing her with their lunch boxes while others threw stones at her. Without hesitation, Lijuan took her in. From that moment on, she made sure the girl had everything she needed, telling anyone who asked that this was her daughter. The girl even took Lijuan's surname, and to this day, she remains deeply grateful to her for giving her the love of a mother. Over time, Lijuan continued to adopt more orphans. Her family urged her to reconsider, asking how she would ever marry with so many kids to care for. But Lijuan shrugged it off, thinking it wouldn't matter. She could just live with her children. As her reputation grew, more and more abandoned children found their way to her home, many of whom had serious health issues. To accommodate them, she rented land on the outskirts of the city and established a village called Love Village, hiring staff to help care for the children. In 2004, her own son was seriously injured and needed surgery. At the same time, one of the adopted children required urgent treatment for severe hydrocephalus. Overwhelmed, Lijuan weighed her options and decided to take her adopted child to Shanghai for medical help, knowing that her biological son had family to care for him while the adopted child had no one but her. In 2006, Lijuan was named one of the top 10 people who moved Hebei province by the provincial government. Yet, her own son became increasingly distant from her, suffering from severe depression as a result. The creation of Love Village stemmed from her guilt toward her son, but now, it was the same village that was causing him pain. This anguish was too deep to share with anyone else. It was a burden Lijuan had to bear alone. But troubles kept piling up. In 2008, her iron mine had to close for various reasons, cutting off her source of income. By 2011, There were 15 children in Love Village who desperately needed surgery, and the treatment costs reached hundreds of thousands of dollars. In December of that same year, Lijuan fell ill, diagnosed with lymphoma from overwork. Yet, she only stayed in the hospital for 7 days before rushing home to sell her house and car, pouring every cent into her children's treatment. By 2013, the number of children she had adopted had ballooned to 48. At that point, she was not only broke but also in over $2 million in debt. Love Village, once located in the suburbs, had to move to a desolate mountain nearby. The only way to survive now was to rely solely on government assistance and social support. To improve the living conditions for the children, Lijuan cultivated over 20 acres of land and raised hundreds of sheep and pigs. This mother, who once loved to dress up, had long since given up on looking nice. Her clothes were worn and shabby, and she was increasingly gray and wrinkled. But the most shocking twist came in 2019, when this inspiring story took a dramatic turn. During the investigation, it was revealed that Lijuan owned luxury cars, mansions, several companies, and a trove of expensive items. She even had $3 million in cash in her accounts. The story took an unexpected twist involving a well-known Chinese company, Gree Electric. In 2017, Gree invested billions in a major local project that required installing cables through the land Lijuan occupied. She and her team went to demand millions in compensation for the alleged invasion of her land. When local authorities intervened, Lijuan had the children from Love Village lie in a dug pit to force the construction company to halt operations. However, this time she had met her match. The project's sudden suspension caused massive losses for Gree Electric. The company quickly deployed legal teams to gather evidence against Lijuan and took her to court. But what no one expected was that after Gree initiated the complaint, letters reporting Lijuan's illegal activities started flooding the court like snowflakes. Her numerous crimes were suddenly laid bare. It turned out that leveraging her fame and the image of disabled children as shields, Lijuan had quietly assembled a group of local vagrants to extort money. Her misdeeds were many. Initially, she monopolized the village's mining area and hundreds of acres of land. Those who dared to resist her were beaten into submission. Later, she extended her reach beyond the village. In one instance, while riding an elevator in a hotel, she claimed the elevator was unstable and injured her back, extorting $25,000 from the hotel. Then, she immediately went to the hospital, claiming an allergic reaction to medications and extorted another $20,000. In her locality, she had become someone who couldn't just be ignored. There was no way to avoid her. A company that wanted to lay fiber optic cables through Love Village only needed to add one more cable to an already established pole. Yet, Lijuan demanded $15,000 on the grounds of radiation, and when the company chose to reroute, she went to the site to obstruct their work. In the end, the company had to cough up $10,000 to her and was forced to write a donation letter to cover up her criminal behavior. Additionally, she falsified documents to conceal the deaths of several children on government assistance, defrauding various types of government support. In 2017 alone, she received over $200,000 in different forms of assistance, all while posting daily on social media about donations from well-meaning individuals. Ironically, despite having $3 million in cash, the children lived in dire conditions, with over 30 of them arriving at welfare institutions infested with lice. It's likely that when she first began adopting children, Lijuan had good intentions in her heart. But as she faced enormous financial gains, those noble feelings gradually got consumed. In 2019, Lijuan was sentenced to 20 years in prison for crimes including extortion, fraud, and forgery. More than 20 years ago, when she learned that her child had been sold, she had stormed into a bus station like a madwoman, haunted by the demons of her drug-addicted husband and human traffickers. Little did she know that 2 decades later, the conclusion of her story would be that she had become the very thing she once despised the most. This is indeed a profoundly tragic and regretful story.